This video is sponsored by Kamikoto.
I need you to kill me.
What?
I've seen the rest of the season, you're doing him a favor. Welcome back to what was supposed to be a sarcastic summary. Instead, I'm just here to give my real thoughts on The Dragon Prince Season 4. It's a lot, and judging by the video length, I have a lot to say. Because The Dragon Prince is a special show to me for many, many reasons. And after 3 years that felt like 9, I really can't say that Season 4 was worth the wait. So I'm just gonna go through episode by episode, tell you kind of what happened and my general thoughts and complaints. I really wanted to make this a fun one. I really did. But instead, I'm doing this. Now, context is king, and if you think you need to watch the first 3 seasons of the show to have it make sense, you're right. But Dragon Prince is having none of it. As the show decided having one bisexual awakening wasn't enough, and went ahead and made the non-child protagonist hook up. This was Rayla. We love it. And the show broke them up in a comic. A fucking comic. Because if there's one thing people love, it's coming back to a show 3 years after it last aired, and having no idea what's going on. With lots of stuff that seemingly happened, none of it mattered, except for the comic. The actual season itself begins with the series' previous antagonist, Viren, waking up from a dirt nap after fucking around and finding out. The dude died. Thankfully for him, his daughter Claudia knows dark magic and thinks he's way less racist than he actually is. Now, Viren Pearson is a great character. He rides that line between being wrong about everything while being eloquent enough to convince teenagers that he isn't. Killing the adults, then tricking the children into launching a war. Viren's Messiah complex reached its natural conclusion, with no one but his pet and daughter complaining. The man was dead. However, the magic of retcons turned his 2-day vacation from life into 2 years. As the man everyone wants to call Daddy Aravos sent Claudia on a fetch quest to revive Viren. We don't know what she did, but we do know who she's doing.
Can I call you Viren?
Making Viren's quest to free Aravos only the second hardest thing he has to do this month. But enough about those guys. Over on the side of the world we pretend to care about, the kingdom of max 20 people is still pretending that they have a government, as the Child King gave his personal chef a position on the council, which is insulting to everyone else who got here the old-fashioned way through nepotism, like my boy Sokka.
Just call me my normal name, Prince Callum.
Callum is the Lum in Rayla, the boy who proved that every human in history wasn't trying hard enough when he panic-attacked his way into doing magic, something humans aren't innately able to do unless it's the insidious kind. 17 years old, already working for his brother and still not over his ex, who he only knew for 2 months. Oh yeah, they only dated for 2 months before Rayla dipped. Callum claimed he was 14 and 5'6" in the first season, then she left him on his 15th birthday. She had to go on a revenge quest, and she didn't want to risk him. And he's not over it. There's a word for someone like this, but it's just not coming to me. This whole episode, though, is not great. I understand wanting an episode to reintroduce the characters we haven't seen in a while, though outside of Viren coming back and realizing that he has to find Aravos, everything else could have been skipped. Like Janai proposing to Amaya is cute, and her nearly killing the entertainment is iconic, but you could start the season with them dating or engaged, and Tumblr was gonna cheer either way. This episode is just kinda meandering as it waits for other plot lines to catch up, which is a problem that the show has always had, but this is the season where all those problems finally caught up with it. For example, episode 2 could have been cut entirely as well, and if they were smart, they would have used a Kamikoto knife to do it. Now, most knives are a waste of time that couldn't cut butter on a summer's day. With Kamikoto's high-quality Japanese steel, cooking troubles are a thing of the past, crafted using traditional Japanese techniques and traditional Japanese steel. Your knife troubles are a thing of the past. Kamikoto builds on the legacy of almost 800 years worth of Japanese technology, creating steel to make knives that have been meticulously handcrafted from traditional techniques that date all the way back to the Edo period of Japan. Now, I know for myself personally, I spent way too much of my life without a high-quality blade. Like, I honestly thought that it was okay, like you were supposed to use a knife like a chainsaw. But with Kamikoto, it glides through steak, apples, and other things I just happen to have in my fridge for B-roll. These are the knives used by chefs in Michelin star restaurants. Because with their single bevel edge, Kamikoto knives can achieve an unbelievably sharp edge you can't get with other knives. Each knife is individually inspected and comes with a lifetime guarantee. And the knives come in a heavy-duty ashwood box, making it perfect for a present, as Christmas time is right around the corner. And if you think these knives might be out of your price range, don't worry. Kamikoto is running a massive Black Friday's Day sale right now. It is now offering my viewers an extra $50 off any purchase with the discount code SarcasticChorus. So go to kamikoto.com/sarcasticchorus and help support the channel, help support yourself, and yes, it has never been this easy. Now, I need the ad break to prep you guys for the hot take. This show has a fun cast. I like most of them. However, the Dragon Prince has this obsession with trying to cram in as many storylines as possible, and it doesn't need most of them, leaving the show with no time to breathe and even less to actually develop the story. Most TV shows have an A and B plot, the A being the major one with the B being secondary. The average Dragon Prince episode, in contrast, has 3, and these aren't vignettes or cutaways, these are actual plots that it wants to develop in tandem with the main story. And having 3 plots, it's doable, but this season doesn't. Like, to put this in perspective, most of the episodes are around 22 minutes long, not including credits or opening. The A plot, the main story, is on average only 12, half the runtime. This is the length of an Adventure Time or Steven Universe episode, but those can get away with it because they only have the one plot. The Dragon Prince, instead, is poorly edited to show us events that barely connect to each other, as the show feels like it has to have these collision points where it wants all the storylines to connect, but has very little for them to do otherwise, as each plotline stalls so that the other one can catch up, or haphazardly showing us the progress of both at the same time, making it so that instead of complementing each other, these stories feel like they are holding each other back. We have 3 main plots. We have the Dragon Gang, the Viren Misery Express, and the one that is a massive waste of time. These 3 strangle each other for attention, worse than any other time in this show's history, as at least in the previous seasons, they were separate enough to stand on their own, while giving us enough detail to make it feel like it is actually worthwhile. Season 4, however, has very little going on. Like, again, episode 2 could have been cut entirely, as a third of the episode is about Callum finally getting a book version of Google Translate to tell him what the runes on the mirror say. You would think that this would be worthwhile, a chance for him to figure out the puzzle to see Aravos or to just be relevant. But no, it isn't.
Reflects off its surface, it becomes as clear as a window, and you can see directly into the prison itself.
The Dragon Queen already knows how to use the mirror. Me and Callum, the show, spent all this time building up a mystery before immediately just giving us the answer, rendering all these scenes pointless. This is just here to be a check-in and to show us that Callum still exists. Meanwhile, Janai and Amaya are dealing with the riveting moral dilemma of having to plan a wedding while Janai's brother Kareem tells his sister to not put a ring on it, because other people will totally have a problem with it. We're never shown these people, so we just have to trust the word of a man arguing against gay marriage. And cut up between all of this is the only semi-interesting part of the episode, as Viren, a man who fell to his death, starts suffering from panic attacks as he's forced to walk up the same mountain he was pushed off of. We get to see him actually feel weak and vulnerable for a change. See Viren actually say, maybe I was a fool all these years and should just enjoy my last month in peace. Only for Claudia to say no, and we go back to sniffing Terry's farts. This all has potential, but you could cut all of this. Viren's new outlook on life, this quick opportunity, this glimpse, is just shut down, and he spends the rest of the season sulking as he really just doesn't want to be here. Claudia's descent into evil is an arc that already was set up in season 3, and no matter how much I like Terry, giving Claudia this goofy boyfriend to be goofy with undercuts her moral decline, rendering what should be a villain quest into being just another road trip segment where the only consistently great part of it is Viren and Terry bonding. You could skip this entire section and just say that they snuck up to the top of the tower, and all you'd lose is a transplant, the line that would have left Soren sobbing, with everything else being content that could have been reshuffled into later events, or set up in a way that didn't take half of the episode just to get Claudia and Terry in place to kill a guy while Ezran preaches at us.
Hey.
So Rayla's just back. ditched her boyfriend to go on a murder mission, and has nothing to show for it, besides becoming a pet mom. Now, Callum has definitely sobbed himself to sleep, somewhere between most and every night because of her. In a twist though, Callum has no idea how he's supposed to feel, as she's back, and she's still down bad. Neither of them know what to do in this situation, so they just kind of stew on it, thirst over it, process it, till Callum decides at the end nearly dying gets her a pass. Now, I already don't like that they broke them up in a tie-in comic, but I'm also happy that they don't immediately just get slapped back together again. There are consequences for Rayla leaving, and Callum is struggling with what to do now that she's back. Unfortunately, like everything in the season, it's underdeveloped and kneecaps a pacing that was already moving at a crawl. The biggest casualty though of this pointless breakup is sadly Rayla. Rayla is one of the best characters in the show. Her personality and snark is easily one of the highlights of the first 3 seasons. But in this one, she feels incredibly muted, as Rayla's whole personality takes a back seat so that she can focus on trying to get back with her ex. The only time she's allowed to be peak Rayla is when she's not with him, which is almost never. So one of the best characters in the show ends up feeling like a shadow of her former self, and has more chemistry with Soren than her boyfriend. Though to be fair, Soren has chemistry with everybody. And I do mean everybody. I love Rayla and Callum. This season though is way too confused and cluttered to accomplish anything with this setup, leaving me of the opinion that they should have retconned the comic and just kept the relationship intact. If they're going to do nothing all season, they might as well be doing it together and be cute about it. But enough about shipping. Let's talk about everyone's real favorite part about the Dragon Prince: informed racism. Now, the show has always been about the cultural divide between humans and elves, but the cycle of violence spinning out of control and the younger generation working together to stop it while the adults abuse it to justify their actions. However, outside of that setup, it is a very informed attribute of the show. Like, once they get to elf country, no elf seems repulsed at the idea of a human being in Zadia, even though that is supposed to be completely off limits. No one gives Callum side-eye. The Dragon Queen wakes up from her depression coma, surrounded by the family of those who murdered her husband, and is just immediately crying that this is what she's always wanted. And this disconnect is a consequence of the pacing of the Dragon Prince always having felt more like a movie than a TV show. The plot is always pushing the story forward, with little time to actually sit down and explore the magical world we're in. Experience the culture, the people, only random individuals who barely have enough time to say hi before dropping off the face of the earth. This show really wants to make unity and letting go of historical grudges be one of the main overall themes. However, since we never get a chance to actually meet these people who might feel this way, the show spends an offensive amount of time telling us about the invisible racists. As the advisor lady, who has to do all the real work, tells wee baby Ezran that maybe meeting the Queen of Dragons on a mass grave of their victims is gonna rub some people the wrong way. Ezran thinks this is good symbolism for moving past those issues. Yes, have your husband's murderer's baby mama walk on their grave, truly a sign of healing. But Apelli's implying other people won't like the Dragon Queen being here is the same shit as Janai's dick-headed brother, who is constantly swearing that there's this growing discontent among the population, or that people are questioning Janai's leadership. It's all implied. The series does nothing to show us that this is even true, to show the common people who are suffering or questioning their leaders, to even have a character who is morally opposed to any of these changes that isn't the explicit bad guy. There's never this sense of confusion that the population is questioning where their country is going and them not liking it. We never get to really know the Sun Elves before they fell. We knew they had shiny buildings, but that's it. So the constant fear-mongering about elves losing their culture thanks to humans isn't properly conveyed, nor is the racial tension, as the only characters we see are the elites, with everything else being told to us. So we never feel like we get a complete grasp of what's going on. The show is giving us sticky notes, not the whole picture, as the show is simply too bogged down in showing every second of 3 different major plots to give us the extra context to actually care about any of these struggles. So when the symbolic painting gets slashed, it feels less like an act of protest and more like set up for Ezran to give a speech about acknowledging people feel bad, that it's okay to feel angry, but they still need to fight for peace. Which, it's a great speech, not taking that away from the writing. But it's just a speech though. Dragon Prince is constantly telling us we need to acknowledge the feelings of those who have been hurt, then proceed to ignore them for the rest of the show. The Dragon Prince wants to act like both sides are morally complex, but never show the actual people at the center of these issues. Instead, we are constantly being informed that people are mad, people are angry, people are worried, and it never feels genuine. It feels less like an actual issue that the story has, and more like setup so that certain characters can go ahead and preach at us, making these big emotional climaxes feel unearned, frustrating, especially when so much of the previous episodes were fluff that could have been used to explore these issues. It's just lip service that distracts from the characters that actually make this show good.
Over my dead body.
Complaints aside, episode 3 is the first decent episode, as it actually has things going on. Claudia steals back Viren's staff, Terry kills that one guy to save her, then we get an actually dope scene when the man uses his last breath to send a message warning everyone that the real villain of the story is planning to escape. It took 3 episodes, but the story finally feels like it has a plot, and the next episode takes that desperately needed momentum and shoots it in the back of the head.
Get a grip.
All the momentum of we need to stop Claudia from freeing Aravos is run into the ground as the dragon gang spends all their time being flown to Stormspire, while the queen just tells us Aravos' backstory. He's Elf Illuminati. Turns out every major conflict in elf-human history has been Aravos secretly pulling the strings the whole time, which fits, but in a story so heavily focused on misguided actions of individuals and their consequences, making an elf with star freckles the mastermind behind all those problems weakens the message a lot. Not to mention how Aravos, a character whose sex appeal and cool factor is drawn from the mystique and just the pure mystery, having his whole imprisonment and general situation just explained to us kind of robs him of that a little bit. It makes sense that the Dragon Queen would know this, but it feels like it's revealing way too much all at once. If this story had been broken up throughout the season, it would have been more tantalizing as we slowly realize what we're dealing with, rather than finally having a good episode, then having the next one be a PowerPoint presentation. It's just like how the Queen invalidated everything Callum googled about Aravos' mirror. It would be weird if she didn't know this information, but it's how the info is delivered that I have a problem with. As this episode is truly just her giving exposition, cutting away to either Viren not wanting to touch his staff, or the one where the Karen almost started a race riot. This story is allergic to skipping anything, even if what we're skipping is boring. So it has to invent something for the characters to do. We have to physically see Callum go grab the mirror from his room, where Soren gets to be the only character with consistently good scenes. We have to see the whole ass council gather to tell Ezran that it's cool if he dips, in basically an apology for dragging him away from the story in season 2. Also, gonna give these 2 shoutouts because they desperately need to be said. I love Corvus's musical performance, and they should have recast Ezran.
Now I'm excited, and I already know what's happening.
He's played by Sasha Rogen, who is a good voice actress. But it doesn't change the fact that while you can get away with a woman playing young boys, Ezran isn't a little kid anymore. He's 12, about to be 13. Puberty is a bitch, and he's getting taller and his voice should be changing to match. Instead, it's distractingly light, creating a vocal mismatch that I don't blame on Sasha in the slightest. It's just one of those shitty situations where they really just kinda needed to recast her, as her natural vocal range just doesn't fit the design anymore. Moving on, the candle scene is fine. There's a million different ways this Karen could have handled the situation. The elf mourning his mother with a candle vigil could have handled it differently as well. Stuff like this happens in real life all the time, but one incident of tension doesn't earn all the attention that it gets later. As again, Kareem will use this to rant about how elves are angry Janai needs to do something, Amai will be more dismissive than she should, with no attention ever being given to the injured parties or the average people whose opinions are allegedly so important to this situation. They really want to convince us that the Sun Elf in camp is a powder keg after this, yet nothing so much as hints of there being a problem, let alone that people are questioning Janai's leadership. Add in the fact that none of this ties into any of the other plots. Don't even get Aravos' proclivity to manipulate mages, leaving this whole arc to feel like a tumor that takes away from storylines that desperately need the extra time. And if anything in this story should have been a time comic, this is it. Thankfully, Aravos finally shows up, is perfect, possesses Callum, roasts everyone in sight, before dropping the mic so hard he breaks the mirror. He almost single-handedly saves this episode, but even all his sex appeal can't pull it off. People will complain that he isn't in the season more, but I think his usage is actually perfect. Minimal screen time, maximum impact.
Failed son, whose father wishes he had never been born. Ouch.
Now to recap, you can practically skip the first 2 episodes. The third is mostly good. The fourth is an exposition dump with a great final scene that lasts a whole 2 minutes, and we're officially almost halfway through the season. I was really hoping that the rest of it would pick up and give me something to be enthusiastic about.
Ding ding! Meeting time! Whoa! I just got this crazy feeling like this has happened before.
I like Soren? Everything after this, and I do mean everything, is nothing more than a fetch quest to meet the Earth Dragon who knows how to find Aravos' prison. Meaning yes, the rest of the season is a fetch quest to start another fetch quest. With the front door being blocked by rubble that the Dragon Queen doesn't even try to start digging through, despite finding out that it is relatively easy for a dragon of their size to move it. So instead, she fucks off, despite being their ride, telling them to walk home, and they're left to search for the secret back entrance. As meanwhile, Viren is now the parent of 2 children as the cocoon hatched, revealing Butterfly Golem, who is guiding them to the same dragon. And all of this could have worked, but again, the show's editing style of constantly cutting between 3 different storylines grinds the pacing to a halt, and it drives me crazy. On its own, I can appreciate Cal and Rayla agonizing over their relationship, or Viren giving bad advice to Terry, who rightfully ignores it before they start bonding again. But these are the exceptions though, as the rest of it is just smashed together and edited like I'm watching clips on TikTok. Every 1 or 2 minutes, they change scenes, and it is maddening. I had hope a couple of times that we were finally gonna see things pick up. Rayla finally got some of her personality back, going on a recon mission with Soren, and she's not happy about it, especially when he starts talking about her breakup.
And one thing I always say, sometimes you need time to work through the weird, and then it'll work out. Or not.
Also, I need to say this, the tone for the Dragon Prince has always been a bit weak. The show will talk about these deep, complex ideas, then overcompensate and do a fart joke. I don't think it works most of the time, I think it's forgivable others, but Soren is the only character that threads that needle between the dumb childish stuff and the more mature storytelling that it actually wants to do. It's desperately trying to convince us and itself that it's a kid's show, and Soren is the only himbo that this whiplash feels like it's in character for. But enough about Soren being the best character. He's off to beat a man from his son. So Soren's just gone, got kidnapped, and the episode is out of time and written to be binged, so no one cares at camp when he doesn't show up. They just all go to bed and panic in the morning as suddenly they have time to care. Also, if they're gonna make the merchandise monkey, who is the 3rd mascot animal, they might as well have Rayla vent her feelings about Callum to it. The group she's in is composed of her ex's brother, and his best friend who she tried to kill. She has no one in this team to confide to, and a little self-introspection would go a long way. To see her worry and rehearse lines about what she's gonna do with Callum, how she might have screwed up the relationship and never get it back. We don't get any of that, except at the beginning, and then it's all forgotten about.
But I'll wrap it up here, as I would not want my comedy routine to drag on.
So yeah, Soren got captured. He's pulling a How to Train Your Dragon. Don't worry about it. Zim is also back in the story. I'm also gonna be completely honest, I keep forgetting all these pets exist. Mostly because they don't need to be here. Teens argue the Unchallenged Moral Center gets everyone to calm down. They put their heads together and bully some British hillbillies. Or as most people call them, Australians. The Earthblood Elves, like the Moonshadow Elves and the Sunfire Elves, and just about every culture in everywhere, is reduced to a single village that we learn nothing about and are just an accent. Earth Elves ride dragons and seem like dicks. Amazing, I know everything now. Thank you, Binge Model, for giving us no opportunities to take a breath and explore the world.
Nice job.
Yeah, you too.
I will make a video about them one day. This is not the one though. Instead, I'm talking about the trial of a woman who clearly did something wrong. I hate it, but I know a lot of people think this is the best storyline, so rip my comment section. The Sun Elves forced a trial for the woman. She freaked out about a little flame being lit in a camp, yet also approved putting animals with fire for tails in a wooden pen. We also have Cream, who explains the cultural significance of the candle, how putting out means that the soul of the deceased might not make it to the afterlife, so Amaya folds immediately, throws Karen under the bus, asking for leniency and not an execution. Karen gets community service. Also, we never get any reaction from the humans on how they feel about this. I get the main focus here is the fear of losing your identity, an identity we know nothing about, but for as much focus as they put on how everyone feels discontent, you think they check in on the humans, how they might feel about their leader throwing one of their own under the bus, and might erode faith in them as a leader. But I guess a silent majority is only a problem when Kareem brings it up, and it leads to a big speech. Speaking of,
The future will be bright again. If not for you and I, then for our children.
Janai walks a path that leads to the end of our history.
so yeah, the brothers planning a coup. I would also like to point out that all put together, this plot takes up only 33 minutes, yet somehow it's stretched across the fucking season.
Claudia?
So Claudia and Soren finally meet. We finally get the character writing that this season has been desperately missing.
Please.
Yep, yep.
That's fun. It's coasting on Avatar cred, but it's fun. Soren gets a chance to talk to his sister for the first time in 2 years, begging her to give up on Aravos, now realizing that his dad is alive, and despite all of this, is ready to forgive her for what she did, including tricking him into thinking that he killed their father. Unfortunately, Claudia is fully drinking the Kool-Aid and inherited Viren's victim complex, leaving elves look down on humans and that they'll always be less in the eyes of dragons. It is hypocritical to say all of this while dating Terry, yet I think it fits Claudia. She's running entirely on emotions, she's trying to justify her biases, that her dad isn't the monster that she knows that he is, that Aravos will help humanity, with those two ideas necessitating that she also has to hate elves, but she also only hates elves as a concept. Firstly, she was fine with Lujan. She loves Terry, who is already an outcast from Earthblood society on account of being trans, so she's willing to make an exception for her boyfriend while not fully realizing that Terry would probably disapprove of everything she just said. But she's not ready to admit it. As if she tugs on that thread, everything she's built her father up to be, his rationale, his invasion of Zadia just falls apart. That he is the sad, opportunistic man who manipulated a conflict to empower himself. Plus, she's talking to Soren, who runs on emotions, so it's her best shot at convincing him. He doesn't. Good try though. Not believing her inherited suffering dogma. Instead, he uses his own personal experience. How he's left his shitty family and has seen the world and realized elves and dragons aren't his enemies, but in fact can be his friends. He's expanded his horizons, while Claudia's kept her narrow point of view. Then he gets jumped by Terry and his dad, who he realizes is alive.
No.
And he is never given a moment to react to this. If you're wondering what the rest of the plot was about, it's classic mid-Dragon Prince. The drag gang leisurely going on an adventure through a crystal cave, no sense of urgency or danger, minus the shadow monster part, with the answer to one test being literally waiting around so that the other plots can catch up. But at least we get women complaining about the AC joke. Callum, who has been getting minimal screen time this whole season, just lost in the tumble, pulls Rayla aside to ask her to kill him if he gets possessed. He's afraid what Aravos might do and the individual parts are there. Soren's warning the Dragon Queens getting possessed. At one time he mentioned that he's been thinking about this, before devolving into relationship angst. Yet, with all that shit going on, it doesn't feel like he's reached a point where he would ask Rayla to do this. The idea is there, but it's not fully formed yet. With Callum worrying about being on a dark path, feels less like an actual problem that he has, and more like a problem that the writers are going to give him later. He has used dark magic before, but he's also renounced it and discovered air magic. If he was going to worry about being on a dark path, this feels like something that would have happened earlier. And I know this is a setup season, narratively it's still all over the place with bad pacing and confused writing. And I do believe the next few seasons will be better. It just doesn't justify how weak this one is. And this is just my personal opinion. I think that this season feels like 3 episodes in a trench coat pretending to be 9 episodes worth of content. They could have made The Search for Rex Igneous into 2 episodes easily. Cut out the Raylan BS, the Sun Elf comic, most of these login screens pretending to be trials, and they easily could have gone there in 2. I edited this out. It only takes them 30 minutes to arrive at the front gate. But that 30 minutes is stretched out between 3 episodes. They could have arrived at the gate in episode 1, had their talk in the first half, meet Rex, before Claudia attacks them. This season is supposed to be all set up, yet it is shocking how little actually happens, while also feeling dragged out thanks to constantly jumping between storylines. It doesn't matter if it's good or bad setup, it's atrocious pacing. This show has always struggled with this. Too many characters, too little screen time, with a slavish devotion to showing all of it. But at least in the previous seasons, each storyline was doing its own thing. There was a clear sign of where this story was going, and it kept you guessing on how they might collide in the future. Here though, one of these storylines has nothing to do with the other two, not even thematically. The Dragon Gang ditched racism after the 3rd episode, and only Soren brings it up. Instead, what we're left with is a 2-horse race that has to finish at the same time, so the writers keep pulling back on the reins before one gets too far or do anything interesting. These plot lines are holding each other back rather than elevating the story, and I hate that we are 4 seasons into the show and we haven't been able to fix something that has been a problem since episode 1.
Zim, you really should have told me earlier.
So as you know, Zim's dad and Rex Igneous had beef, so now there's a reason for Zim to be here, to cause conflict. So rather than having him wait in the back with one of the interchangeable child characters, they change him into a dog, wake the Earth Dragon from a nap, give him their stuff with long-winded speeches about how much the items mean to them. Rayla gives the butterfly blades her dad made her last reminder of Runan. Ezran gives his crown, which was forged from his father's sword, and Callum gives the staff he looted off of Ibis's corpse. Yes, all of these things are absolutely equal. The dragon does not care, eats a tart, chills out, and points out how stupid it is that they think he'll just tell some random children where Aravos is hiding, but they never explain that someone else is looking for him. Instead, he rants about how much he hates Zim's dad. Everyone gets offended. I don't care, he's probably half right. Then when he finds out Zim is the deceased king's son, he really starts going off, till they point out that the man is dead, which puts this whole situation behind us. Finally. Then Claudia shows up, and then everything that this season has been building to comes together, and it is just fine. So let's just get this headache out of the way. Amaya and Janai pull Black Panther, Janai fights for leadership, gives another speech, yet more than anything else, what drives me crazy is that episode 8 starts with Janai suggesting that they should just run away together. Right now. Just abandon her people because it's too much pressure and she feels unsure of herself. Despite the fact that she stopped the race riot super easily, barely an inconvenience, and for the last 4 episodes, has not had an emotional low. She has handled the ruling shit gracefully. She has told her brother of her plan to build a better world for her children. But nope, when we come back to her, she's at a low that Cake and Kisses have to bring her out of. Like, I hate this subplot. It has vaguely interesting ideas, but it's laughable to me to make a story about the fear of Sun Elves losing their culture, fearing change, not knowing where they as a people are going, when we really don't know dick about them. Hell, even Janai is boring. Amaya is just chilling, and every piece of info that we get that tells us that there is a problem outside the candle incident is coming from a guy who is already trying to overthrow his sister. This whole plot feels like an apology tour for not showing racism in Zadia. Honestly, I can almost buy that since elves probably don't think that much about humanity after kicking them to the curb and closing off the supposed magical paradise. But it's over.
Step aside, Janai. Or fight.
Fatality.
But it's over, we're moving on. So back to the dragon pad. Things are looking great. Soren used the power of Smelly Feet to wake up Rayla, who again is acting more like herself around Soren than with anyone else.
Got an idea to wake him up that will be equally effective, but slightly less cruel.
I'm just gonna stab him.
Seriously, where has this Rayla been for the last 8 episodes? If they were gonna do the breakup off screen, I can get behind it, but they don't do nearly enough to justify that decision. Anyways, the dragon is awake, throwing a tantrum. Turns out the secret to getting to Aravos is carved into his tooth, with the baddies now having a copy of that thanks to Gollum, Sweat, and Terry. Team Suckit runs away. Rayla sees Viren and realizes he's alive and leaves Callum to go hunt after Viren. This time with Callum approving of his wife's murder mission, which is cool that he's accepting it, but still feels too soon and more situational than he's suddenly cool with this. He is very irrelevant this season, so we might as well approve this so we can get to something better. Speaking of which, Rayla is threatening to kill Claudia's twink. Claudia reveals that Rayla's parents and surrogate father figure aren't dead, but have been turned into coins by Viren, offering to trade them for Terry's life, which to Rayla's credit, she doesn't cave, but still has the gut reaction to save them when Claudia tosses the coins into the lava. Only whoops, yeah, Claudia tricked her, which massive dick move, but it fits Claudia. However, then Terry, being the only person here with a sense of morality, points out what a dick move that was, so she physically walks back to give Rayla the coins. Now, to give my thoughts on Terry. as he is apparently a controversial subject. I like him. His solo scenes with Viren are the only consistently good interactions we get across that entire subplot. I do think he brightens the mood a bit too much for a party consisting of a Grand Wizard and a daughter that's getting more evil by the day. If he's going to be here though, Terry has to be the moral compass of the group. Claudia is weird and can be nice to her friends, but she's also shown to be almost sadistic to those she considers her enemies. Claudia is only going to get progressively worse as the series goes on. She's already given up on her brother, so I feel like they just had to give her a new morality pet to make her reconsider some of these bad decisions. And Terry calling Claudia out is perfect. The physically walking back to give Rayla the coins is a bit goofy, but her lobbing it from the cave mouth would have been just as bad. Either case, Claudia would be within sprinting distance from Rayla, who could easily chase after them. If Claudia had just dropped the coins on the ground, caused a small cave-in, and Rayla, instead of breaking down over getting tricked, was chasing them, only to find the dead end and the coins, yeah, I think that would have worked a little bit better. But it isn't the worst thing in the world. I also don't see Terry being with Claudia as weird as some people do. Terry, on account of being trans, was already considered an outsider from his apparently hyper-masculine Earthblood society, making him a little bit more willing not to judge others and question traditional elf biases, aka dark magic, and why he's not freaking out about it. It does make you question though how widespread the knowledge is that Viren specifically led a human army into Zadia, caused the downfall of the Sun Fury elf capital, because those kinds of acts of violence feel like it should make Terry at least a little bit hesitant to side with these two. But we don't know, and the size of the world is constantly shifting, so I don't know if this is a problem or not. As right at the moment, it feels about as big as Skyrim, with only towns instead of nations. So you'd think word would spread fast about a human invasion, meaning that Terry either doesn't know or doesn't care. We'll just have to wait and see how his character turns out, and he's one of the few that I'm actually excited and curious to see what happens to him. The rest of the episode is finished. Goofy nonsense with Bait running against a door, dragons have an elemental dick measuring contest, and Callum finally tells Rayla that he's happy that she's back. Which feels, but it's whatever. And if they're just back together in the next season, I'm going to be both annoyed and happy. As on one hand, them breaking up did nothing for me. It made Rayla worse without giving us enough actual drama to make this situation feel worth it. On the other hand though, if they are really just fixed, they just wasted my time for nothing. Viren is also either possessed or dark magic has made him evil again. Neither answer is satisfying, so guess we all just have to sit on our hands till season 5. Folks, this season wasn't great. Like, even immediately after watching it, when I was the most hyped, I would still only give it like a 6 out of 10. But going back through it, the dumb shit really just makes it less and less fun for me. None of the problems in the show are new. Fart jokes, bad pacing, too many storylines, desperately trying to prove that it isn't a kid's show. All this has been a problem since the first season. But this is definitely when those issues have felt the most pronounced, as the pacing is genuinely terrible. The plot has so little going on, with the constant jumping between plot points making what little that does happen take forever. It kills your ability to enjoy what's going on and makes you notice the flaws so much more. A setup season isn't an excuse for this, as even the first season, a season whose animation was so wonky that they never did that shit again, felt more focused even though it itself was set up. This show had a troubled production history. They didn't even know if they were gonna get greenlit to finish the show after season 3. Not to mention COVID, messing up everything for everyone. So I'm gonna be very forgiving that the show doesn't look as good as it did in previous seasons. Errors and all. But for me, it's the writing, how the story is paced, that truly tanked this season. After 3 years, it just wasn't worth the wait. Which sucks, since I did not want to rip into this show. So, just decided midway through editing this that probably better to give this part IRL, so enjoy my real face. It is what it is. But yeah, for me, The Dragon Prince, it's a very special show. It is something that I have a very deep connection with, because The Dragon Prince is a show that pretty much made me a YouTuber. Like, 3 years ago, I was fresh out of college. I didn't know what I was gonna do with my life. It was like, job. Could not get the jobs I wanted. Editing TV, very difficult to get into. But then I just kind of decided like, hey, let's just start editing YouTube videos. I didn't expect it to be anything. I just wanted to keep busy, so I didn't like feel super shitty, like get to the end of the week, feel like I hadn't accomplished anything. I was like, hey, at least I did this YouTube thing. Well, then I gave up. Went to go do manga chapter reviews. Thank God no one has found those things because they were not great. But then season 3 of The Dragon Prince rolled around, and I had talked about the previous 2 seasons. I did my sarcastic summary shtick. I was like just doing freeze frames. I wasn't doing like full clips because I was afraid of copyright. But season 3 was about to come out. And like those 2 videos I did about The Dragon Prince, they had a couple views. Like people started watching them like just out of the blue. I think the algorithm picked it up a little bit. It's like, well, there's no one really talking about this, so people started seeing my shit. And like just enough people asked, I was like, kind of started having the day job now. I guess I can make this. So I went ahead, made my season 3 video about the Dragon Prince, and like it didn't blow up, but for a guy that had less than 100 subscribers, having like 1,500 views by the end of the week was insane to me. And it just kind of kept going from there. The Dragon Prince is special because it's what got me into the algorithm. It's what got people like to actually look at my channel for the first time. I would not have my first 1,000 subscribers when I did if it wasn't for this show. I'm not sure I would be a YouTuber if it wasn't for that season 3. So I want nothing but the best for the Dragon Prince. I want to love and just completely support it because it helps support me. It helped me find this career that I'm doing right now. And it's just, I want it to be good. And this season was just kind of a mess. And I didn't want to say that. I really didn't. But it is what it is. Hopefully season 5 will be better. I mean, it probably will be. But that doesn't take away from the fact that this season...
Oh, what?
I guess I'm still here, so might as well. Hi, I'm Sarcastic Course. Please like, share, and subscribe to my channel. Be kept up to date on all my video nonsense. I mostly do shipping, occasionally do summaries. Some of it's good. Thank you all for watching. This has been me. Please have a good one.